May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be always acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Mine hour has not yet come. This, too, is part and parcel of the Epiphany, the making known of the essential divinity of Jesus Christ, which contains as well the making known of the will and purpose of God for our humanity. And perhaps no Epiphany story better concentrates and encapsulates both the essential divinity of Christ and the divine will and purpose for our humanity so gently and joyously. It's such a pastoral, rustic, and ordinary scene, the setting of a country wedding in Cana of Galilee. But in the midst of the ordinariness of this ordinary scene, extraordinary things occur. And these are things for us to ponder and to wonder and to adore. There's the discovery of the limitations and the poverty of our humanity, pointed out ever so poignantly and yet so directly by Mary. They have no wine. There is the divine provision for our joy, water turned into wine. But not just ordinary wine, but the best wine, the good wine, has been kept until now. It is, we are told, the beginning of signs which Jesus did. This beginning of signs, this first of a series, has a greater significance than the mere start of a linear progression of events. This beginning, as it were, contains the essential meaning of all the signs of Jesus. In a way, they only make sense through this story. The miracles of Jesus are ultimately signs, things that are done, which teach and reveal purpose. They show the power of God in Jesus, the power of the Creator who is the Redeemer, without which our humanity would remain in its wounded and broken state of sorrow and sin, blind and deaf, dumb and lame, lacking the means of lasting joy within ourselves. In short, dead and dying. What are the miracles of Christ really all about? Well, two things. There is the power of the Creator from within the created order. What manner of man is this, say the storm-tossed sailors, that even the wind and sea obey him? Then there is the power of the Redeemer, present in the compassion of Christ, who seeks the healing and the restoration of our humanity, both body and soul. But why and for what end or purpose? The Gospels show Jesus giving sight to the blind, hearing to the deaf, speech to the dumb, cleansing the lepers, and by extension to all who suffer from the contagion of disease, giving movement to the paralyzed and to the lame, even life to the dead and buried. Indeed, all these signs have signal and purpose. They speak to us about the hope of transformation and healing, the hope of being made whole in the fullness of our humanity. In a way, the healing miracles of the gospel are all about death and resurrection, the death and resurrection of Christ in us. But again, why? For what end or purpose? Simply for praise. simply for the act of worship and adoration, simply for joy, holy joy. The teaching church does not exist first and foremost as a world improvement society. All the things which Paul reminds us about and exhorts us to be in the epistle for today are testimony and witness to the meaning of our life in Christ. Our work and our actions are to be the signs of love in Christ, alive in us. We reach out to others in that love, seeking His face in the poor and lonely, the sick and the dying of the world. In short, providing for others in need out of the love of Christ. Our works must be signs of our faith, and that's always the challenge. God seeks the very best for us, and that very best has to do with our joy and blessedness. Joy and blessedness that can only come from Him to us. Even more, a joy and blessedness that must be Christ in us, sacramentally and practically speaking, by way of what we hear and see, by way of what we do out of what we are given. To hear and see in the word proclaimed and the sacraments celebrated, in lives of holiness and service, in lives of sacrifice and commitment. The healing miracles are about far more than the healing of our physical selves. They are far more than our mental sense of well-being. They are much more radically about our life with God. The end and purpose of humanity is found in God. We have an end with God. And something of what that means appears in the imagery of the wedding feast. After all, the kingdom of heaven is often imaged in terms of a wedding feast, a feast to which we have been invited. And while there are things, quite rightly, that are required of us as guests and participants in the wedding, marriage is fundamentally of God's doing. Whether we speak of the union of men and women in holy matrimony, that divine estate instituted of God, signifying unto us the mystical union that is betwixt Christ and His church, as the marriage service in the Book of Common Prayer puts it, or whether we speak spiritually and metaphorically, the union of God and man in Jesus Christ, a union which preserves in the fullest possible way the distinctiveness of the divine and the human. Such is the challenge for our church and age. There are, as an old medieval hymn puts it, our social joys, the joys which belong to our fellowship in the gospel, that of Jesus Christ, come what may, whether it be persecution or sorrow, frustration or failure. And how can that be? Because of the radical meaning of this gospel story. There is this extraordinary thing which Jesus says to Mary, "My hour has not yet come." And what does He mean? He means that the very things which God seeks for us, our good and joy found in Him, are bought with a price. The price of His sacrifice, of His death and resurrection, the hour of His crucifixion and triumph. Somehow this beginning of signs points to what is present in all of the healing miracles of Christ. They all belong to His passion In a way, they all participate and share in his passion, by which our humanity finds healing and salvation. The end, the goal, or purpose is joy and blessedness, but only through his hour, the hour which gathers all the things of time into the eternal purpose of God. The point is wonderfully captured in the opening phrase of one of the Reformed catechisms, the Westminster Shorter Catechism. What is the chief end of man, it is asked, to which the answer is given, to glorify God and enjoy him forever. Our liturgy, especially in this gospel story, suggests something of what this means. We live in Christ through his word and sacrament. But we can only partake of Christ through his body broken, his blood outpoured, through the things of his hour. Such is his love for us, the love that is agony and joy. For as one of our poets and divines, George Herbert, puts it, love is that liquor sweet and most divine, which my God feels as blood, but I as wine. The wine of divinity graces us with the social joys of heaven and signals the salvation of our humanity, all because mine hour has not yet